Before the world knew my name, I was just a passenger in a delayed train. But that dream was built on a childhood of cursed diamonds and a university degree in classics that many told me was impractical. I stood at the edge of a precipice, staring down at a life that felt like a series of broken promises. By every conventional measure, I was the biggest failure I could ever find. A jobless single mother, a mother who is weeping the death of her own mother, living in a cold Edinburgh flat with nothing to her name but an old typewriter and a story about a boy who also lived in a cupboard. I grew up in a small village on the English Wales border. Looking back, the signs were always there. At 6 years old, I wrote my first story about the rabbit, creatively titled Rabbit. By 11, I graduated to a novel about seven cursed diamonds. I was a quiet child, a dreamer, who eventually studied French and classics at Exeter University. The backgrounds of classics would later become the secret ingredient for the Latin-based spells I have eventually cast on the world. In 1990, I was sitting on a delayed train traveling from Manchester to London. It hit me like a physical rush of adrenaline, a scrawny black haired boy who didn't know he was a wizard. I didn't have a walking pen on me, neither do I ever wanted to borrow it from it because I was a silent child. I didn't know it then, but those 4 hours allowed the details of Hogwarts, Ron, Hermione, and Hogwarts to take root in my mind with a riches I might have lost if I had been busy scribbling. 1990s. My mother passed away from multiple sclerosis. It was a devastating blow that changed the tones of my writing, the deep, aching grief Harry feels for his parents. That was my own heart bleeding into the page. 1992 to 1993. I moved to Portugal to teach English, hoping for a fresh start. I married, had my daughter Jessica, but the marriage ended in a peaceful divorce. The breaking point. I returned to Edinburgh, Scotland with nothing but a suitcase and a half manuscript. By every usual standard, I was the biggest failure I knew. I was a single mother living on state benefits, battling clinical depression that made me feel like soulless. I used to ride in cafes, mainly the Elephant House, while my daughter slept in the pram. I wasn't there for the aesthetic, I was there for it was the warmest flat that I can ever afford. When the manuscript for the Philosopher's Stone was finally done, 12 publishers rejected it. One editor, Boomsbury, finally said yes, mostly because his 8 years old daughter Alice read the first chapter and immediately dreamed of the rest. My journey wasn't paved with gold, it was paved with 12 no's stacked of rejection letters and the quiet hum of a coffee shop where I wrote while my daughter slept. I am a living proof that rock bottom isn't a dead end. It's a foundation. You don't need a one to change your life. You just need the stubbornness, relentless belief that story is worth telling even when the rest of the world hasn't heard of it yet.